Hey, somebody's got to find my Floby. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
Sheriff's Office. This is the Sheriff's son, Opie Taylor speaking.
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth.
You've got the number 7 record in the country.
With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer.
Back to back to back to back.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. I thank you for making me a part of your week. As the Professional Noticer, it's my job to professionally notice things, and not a single thing is off limits. So, questions about business, comments on spiritual issues, observations on popular culture. We'll even tackle the odd conundrum like, how many months have 28 days? It's just one, you think? No, all 12 months have 28 days. It's just that a few have several more. Look, my purpose here today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. Our sponsor this week is the Blue Plate Special. At 12:15 Central Time, 2 or 3 days of the week. We don't really know what day of the week, but 2 or 3 days of the week. And it's at 12:15 Central Time. The Blue Plate Special. It's this amazing phenomenon, at least to us. But we're streaming live on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. 12:15 Central Time, 2 or 3 days of the week. Blue Plate Special is learning and laughter, mostly laughter, and it's at lunchtime. So you can just call it up on your phone, call it up on the computer, and talk to us. We just have a great time. We've been joined by Terry Bradshaw has joined us, Sugarcane Jane, Mark Lowry, Jimmy Yeary, quite a few people, more than just a few, quite a few. And we have literally thousands of people that are just plugging in and just having a few laughs together at lunchtime 2 or 3 times a week. You can click a notify button and it'll let you know when we're on the air. But that's 12:15 Central Time, 2 or 3 days of the week, is the Andy Andrews Blue Plate Special. And we won't have nearly as much fun until you join us. Observations and answers, that's what we do here with the Professional Noticer. I'd like to point out that I am a professional noticer. There's no amateur noticing going on around here. But I love what we are doing with this podcast now, because we're bringing in people that are very, very interesting. I'm fortunate that I feel like I have somewhat of a background to be able to call on people who wouldn't normally maybe do things like this. And our guest today is one of those, because he is one of the busiest people I know. Now, I've known our guest for quite a while, and I don't even know, Matt, I don't even know how to, because most people say, and here he is, a singer, or now here he is, a speaker, but this guy, I'll just say he is Scott Dawson. Scott, I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, Andy, it's a privilege to be with you, my friend.
How is your podcast going? Now, I've been fortunate enough to be a guest on yours, and
my very first guest.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And so everything going good? It didn't close down after that, did it?
No, you actually helped me. Honestly, you helped me get through. You were the perfect first guest. Because one, you treated me with not only professionalism, but compassion. You taught me how to do an interview.
You're the perfect first guest because you didn't really matter. And we were just kind of practicing.
It was not only we had Andy, but you were so professional. You got me through the rough cuts, because as giving an interview, it's not about you.
It's different, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Because most of us like to talk about ourselves. And you taught me it's more about setting up the platform for your guest, finding out those important details. You're the one that's taught me. It is the little things that matter that
Well, I am proud to be your friend, but your best friend has certainly taught you more than I ever could about talking into a microphone. Scott his best friend is Rick Burgess of Rick and Bubba fame.
Yes.
And these guys are like syndicated into 1 million markets around the world. And they are. I just love listening to them. Do you know I wrote them into the book? The third Jones book is done, third Noticer book is done, and it releases in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote them into that. There's something that I'm driving along and I'm listening to my favorite guys, Rick and Bubba.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote them into this, and I've got them say, I wrote some pretty funny dialogue, if I don't mind saying so myself. But I got to thinking the other day, now I haven't asked them yet, but I got to thinking the other day, at some point I do the, we do the audiobook. We do the book for Audible. And I want to get them to do their own voices.
Oh, I'm sure they would.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, they're into here's what I love about Rick and Bubba. They're the same off air as they are on air. I mean, a lot of times in professional life with celebrities, when the cameras are on, they're one way, and when the cameras are off, they're totally different. Rick is the same 24/7.
He absolutely is.
And I think that's the reason, part of the reason there's a platform for them. Because if you see them out in public, they're just as funny, but they're just as insightful, just like you. I mean, so I'm sure they would do that.
How did you and Rick meet the first time? Because it's kind of most famous people, and whether you know who Scott is or not, I actually sat beside a guy on an airplane one time who I mentioned something about Kenny Rogers, and he said, "Who is that?" And so I thought, really? But whether you know Scott or not, Scott is famous. I mean, around the country, and we'll get to why in just a minute. But it's odd for two famous people like you and Rick to be best friends. How did you guys meet? And we'll also get to a defining moment in your relationship. But
sure.
I'm curious how you guys met.
Yeah, it was through a mutual friend, Kevin Derryberry. He used to play with Telluride, and he knew Rick back in the nightclub days. Well, Kevin got his life straightened out and came to our conference. Interesting, he came to our conference right after he got his life straightened out.
Now tell them what your conference is.
Okay, we do student conferences, 7th through 12th grade mainly, and we have about anywhere between 8 to 12,000 on a normal conference setting.
But your last one, you had like 18,000.
Yes, we had something special happen with that one.
Right.
But normally, I mean, it's a pretty large student conference. And Kevin had just gotten his life straightened out, came to me and said, "Man, I'd love to come to your conference." Didn't ask to sing or anything. But when you see someone like Kevin, and he's so talented, I said, "Sure, go ahead and sing." And I just made the statement. I said, "Hey, guys," and there are a lot of youth pastors and pastors in the room. I said, "If you want to use Kevin, he could sure use some dates." Well, I didn't know that he was going to book 74 dates that conference. And
you said, "Wait, what about that agent fee?"
That's exactly. Then when I wanted to book Kevin, I had to go through a booking agent.
Oh,
So
my
anyway,
gosh.
no,
Seriously.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But he introduced me to Rick when we were doing an event in a baseball stadium called Safe at Home. It's a minor league baseball game, and then right after the game, we bring a stage out, and we'll have some music. We'll have a testimony that Rick was going to give.
Right.
And back then, it was raw Rick. I mean, he basically had about 5 minutes in him of Jesus, and then the rest you better watch out. Now it's almost totally reversed.
Right.
Our joke is he was going to teach me humor, and I was going to teach him how to preach evangelistically.
Right.
I'm a much better teacher than he is, okay? He is on fire all the time. So when we met then, of course, as you've kind of come to notice, anything with Scott, there's going to be a story tied to it. On that particular event, there was this guy flying a model plane, and he was flying it over the stadium during the service. I mean, it was after the game. And so it was a red plane, and the joke was with Rick and Bubba that literally the devil was flying the plane. That little Satan was in there flying the plane.
Little Satan flying the plane.
Little Satan.
Yeah, that's Rick. Yeah, yes. Yeah, you're about to say, well, could we Sing all, surrender all, and here's Rick going, "Little Satan's up in the air."
It's all over the place. And so I got so bold to say, well, y'all just need to pray that plane goes away. Well, it went away. And I made the bold statement, y'all prayed that plane away. No, he was just refueling. So here he comes coming back around.
Pray that he stays away.
So we started doing some events together. Rick was always just a learner, wanting to get better at not only his trade, but now his passion on platform. And so from then, we got into I started inviting him to our student conference. And he was speaking one year. And that's...
Yeah. This was... I don't even know how to describe this moment. I know that when I say this, there are going to be tears spring to the eyes of people even listening. But this, and I remember the morning that it happened, but you were standing beside Rick when he was told. Would you just tell us what happened?
Well, it was in January, our student conference, and at the end, Rick was really getting involved with speaking to churches and youth groups, and he'd come to our conference. We were eating breakfast at a restaurant. I'll never forget what he said. He said, "This is my perfect weekend." He said, "I got to deer hunt yesterday. I'm coming up to speak." At that time, there were 6,000 students. And he said, "Then I'm going to go home tomorrow and spend a day with my family. It is the perfect weekend." That night, and back then, we had 3 different theaters, all running 2 sessions each. So a person would not speak just one time. We could only have 1,000 students in the room at a time. So a speaker would do 6 rotations, 3 different theaters, and it was just a Rubik's Cube. And on the 3rd presentation, Rick would say his phone was just buzzing constantly. It was a call from Birmingham. His son, Bronner, had gotten outside and fallen into the family pool. And at that moment, we just knew there was an accident. And I'll never forget when I walked into the back of Louise Mandrell's theater at that time, and I heard about it, got over to the governor's mansion theater, and I walked in the back room, and there was just like this glow over Rick. And of course, we had to get him back to Birmingham. There were 6 private jets coming, getting ready to come get him. They finally got one in the air. We got him on the plane, and it was at that moment that we realized that Bronner didn't make it. He had passed away, gone on into eternity. And just walking through that with the family, it was intense. There was mourning, and after it was over, we came back to Birmingham after the conference, and the entire conference turned on a dime. I mean, it was one of those where no one really knew what to say. You're never prepared for something like that.
And if I remember this correctly, you asked Rick, "Do you need me to go with you?
Absolutely.
Do you need me to go with you? I'm ready to go on the plane with you."
And he said, "No, your mission is here. I'll go home." And so he flew back by himself. And, he'll say when he walked into the hospital room, he was the only one. Sherry needed him.
Sure.
I mean, you can have doctors, you can have pastors, you can have friends, but Sherry needed her husband, and Rick was there. And I came back. I was on the show the Tuesday. I got it back in Monday. The conference was over on Monday. Tuesday, I got into the studio with Bubba, and I'll never forget. I mean, there were people calling in with questions. I actually led someone to Christ on this was a national entertainment show. This was not on Christian radio.
Right. This isn't Christian radio, you guys. This is a morning show.
Yeah.
This is 2 guys and a wild crew of zoo people, and it's funny as it can be. You can look them up on YouTube. You can hear their podcast. And they are great, but this is entertainment. I can't even imagine even kind of coming back to that after.
Yeah, and that now their platform's bigger than ever.
Bigger than ever. Yep.
And we set up a streamline that someone could respond as they watched the funeral, Because at that time, you didn't even know if Rick was going to be able to share during the funeral. There was two options.
Oh, I know. I watched it.
Rick was going to either share, or the pastor, Danny Wood, was going to be able to walk right up if Rick couldn't do it.
Yep, I know Danny, and I was watching, and I can't even describe what I was thinking. I must have held my breath for 12 minutes while Rick was talking.
Because you didn't know what was coming, but it was so anointed. And
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You can
Second most watched YouTube of the year.
Yeah. I mean, you can actually still see that. And I would be, remiss at this point not to mention something that came out of that, of course, no one would ever have expected at the time. And there have been situations where people have had tragedies in their lives, and then a year later there's a book that comes out about the tragedy, and I don't know how many years it was, but it was a number of years. And Sherry actually wrote a book called Bronner, and I've read books before that had, what you would consider maybe a tragic storyline or whatever, and you can feel the anguish. But this is the first time I have ever read a book like that where that main participant had waited long enough to find out some benefits that just about the whole situation. I mean, because I know I sit here right now and I go, what benefits could there possibly be? But that book, if there is ever a book to give to somebody that is going through a situation similar to this, that is the book.
Yeah.
Go look it up today. It's called Bronner, Bronner, and it's by Sherry Burgess. And
the Princeton Religion Research Group, they said the number one question Americans asking today is, why is there so much pain and suffering? And to me, I've been through seminary. This book, Bronner, written by a lay person, but is probably the most. It is the most articulated reference to why is there so much pain and suffering. What you can learn out of it. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were in. I think we were in New York. And we were at a meeting, and you walked up to me. You had just read that book on the airplane, and you said, "Hey, you know Rick Burgess, don't you?" And I was like, "Oh,
yeah, because we didn't really know each other at that time,
right?" And you said, "You've got to tell him this book is." I mean, I can't remember the word you used, but it was almost like this. This is an amazing book,
right?
And so it is. If you hadn't read it, you need to get Bronner. It's anywhere you can find books.
I read a lot. And there are books that I like and books that I can appreciate, and there are some books that I love. But there is rarely a book that blows me away. There are writers that can blow me away with their talent or their ability to put words together. But there's rarely a book whose message blows me away. And that one, I'm telling you, it's the best of its genre.
Yeah.
It is.
And when you walk through something like that with someone, you're just bonded forever.
Yeah.
And so our families, it was really crazy. One final aspect. I was with Rick in Pigeon Forge, and Tara was with Sherry in the emergency room. And we think we witnessed what they walked through, and they were so consistent in their faith. And so it's just an incredible book. And since then, Rick and I just get into a lot of stuff together.
You guys do. It is pretty amazing to see what you guys have gone through in the past number of years. How's Tara? How are the kids?
Tara's doing
They're
well.
not kids anymore. But.
Oh, no. Hunter and Hope.
Hunter's married.
Hunter got married to Shannon. We have a new daughter-in-law, and That all came about during another season in my life as I was out running across the state of Alabama, running for political office. That really bonded you and I together.
I mean, really did. That was the beginning of our friendship. I think the current governor probably hates my guts now because of it, but
no, because she's governor.
Yeah, she's
governor.
She
shouldn't be upset about anything. I should be the one upset. You didn't let me. You promised me victory. No,
man. Yeah, but Tara, everybody's good.
Yeah, everyone's good.
What's Hope doing?
Hope just won.
She's still in college, right?
Oh, yeah, she's at Sanford University, becoming a senior. In fact, she just won president of the student body of Sanford University.
That is awesome. Thank God a Dawson can win an election.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
And Rick Burgess would say that she should have run for governor.
Yeah.
She was the Dawson that should have run.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, my gosh. That was such a... How do you view that now? I mean, because it's been a couple of years, and we talked so many times.
You talked me off the ledge many times. I mean, literally, and I'm forever indebted to you for just being a friend.
I'm very, it didn't turn out like we wanted or expected, but I'm grateful for the time.
Absolutely.
But that's me. I don't know if you're grateful for the time. I mean, I got a friend out of it. I got you, but. You're probably going, I didn't really need another friend.
No, but that's Tara and I both have in our journals, and I don't know where we got it. I don't know if we listened to a sermon and it just piqued our interest. It may be in one of your seminars, but we have written out, obedience demands no explanation. And to me, it's like, as a parent, if your kids just obey you when they understand, that's not obedience. That's being complicit. That's getting by. But if they're truly obedient, they're going to obey even when they don't understand. And why think about it. Realistically, rationally, we were for 25 plus years building a platform for ministry, one of the largest student conferences, working with Major League Baseball. I've spoken to over 2,000 junior and senior high schools with a Respect School Assembly. All of that being built, and then all of a sudden, for us to be uprooted and planted into a run for governor.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because, I knew you were going around and you were talking to people, influential people in our state and saying, hey, we need somebody like you to run for governor. Now, come on, you step up. We need you. You have a great life and it's time for you to give something. And we need you. And over and over again, people were like, me? Scott, you're the one that ought to run for governor. Scott, I'm not here to hear. I'm here to talk to you about. And so many people said that to Scott. Scott was like, good grief. I can't even talk to anybody. It became very clear. Now see, my big problem with God has always been that he doesn't seem to be under any obligation to tell me what he's doing. Okay. And so while it was very clear that you were supposed to run, and I still believe that, obviously it wasn't clear that you were supposed to win.
And that was
how do you
never
see that? How do you process that?
Yeah, to me, again, I had searched it out, prayed in my heart, and searched my own ambition and ulterior motives to figure out I didn't really want to do this. I really didn't. I wanted someone else to do this, but they kept telling me, you need to pray about it. And that's one of the worst things in the world is say, just pray about it. And then you actually start praying through it. And it was just so overwhelming that I'll tell you, we didn't win, but the things that we've seen come out of it.
Sure changed the conversation around here.
Yeah, and we did, because let me just back up and say, when we got into this, the corruption and In fact, at one time, I think there were only 3 of our executive officers that had actually been elected to their position. The rest of them had either been reassigned or,
Somebody went to jail and they had to take it.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where we had to do something to find stability in our state. And we were down here with you and Paulie, and we went to the church you guys attend
at
Floribama.
Yeah.
I love that concept. I tell everyone about it. And I left
I still want to
here.
write an article at some point saying why I go to church in a bar. Anyway, go ahead.
And I think it's phenomenal. We left here. We went up to a place called Gordo, Alabama.
Sure.
And I got to Gordo, and it was going to be a rally. It was a student rally. It wasn't even a political event. But because I was running for governor, they had to hire security for me. Nothing's going to happen in Gordo, but they hired security for me.
But you're right next to Reform.
Yes, exactly right. And they had me a security officer. I spoke, and then after I spoke, we have a challenge to the kids to respond. And I walked over to where the students were going to respond, and the police officer, big burly African American police officer, was standing in the doorway, and I tapped him on the shoulder because I felt like he was protecting me from the students. I wanted to get in there. And when he turned around, Andy, have you ever seen someone who has cried so much there are like salt stains on their cheeks? Yeah. And only in Gordo, and I'll go ahead and tell you his name because he's become a friend. His name, the way they introduced me to this guy, was Officer Pooh Bear. That was his Officer Pooh Bear. Wow. So when Pooh Bear turned around and I saw him, my first reaction was, Pooh Bear, Pooh Bear, what's wrong? You don't want your security guard crying on you. You know, what's right. I couldn't stop him, So I said, let's go outside. And he said, when I heard you talk tonight, you talked about peace and forgiveness and love. And he said, I'm in Gordo. Not much happens in Gordo. But every time I go on duty, I'm afraid that's the last time that's the last night I'll be alive. And so that night I had a chance to talk to Pooh Bear and really get some things straightened out in his life. And I remember driving back to Birmingham with my wife after a long day, Floribama, Gordo, going back to Birmingham. And I said, in ministry, I've always heard if one life is changed, it's worth it. If one life is changed, it's worth it. And I said, wouldn't it be just like our God to interrupt our lives, to take us from the Floribama to Gordo, Alabama, where one police officer who would have never attended one of our events, would have never been there, but God had to get him there so that he could meet me, I could meet him, but more importantly, for his life to be changed. And I remember I had my hand on, we were holding hands in the front. I remember this distinctly. I said, Tara, if that's what this is all about, I'm good. And I think that to me brings everything into focus of going, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? Right. It's not to take up space. It's not to consume more stuff. It's to make an impact.
And understanding the butterfly effect. Good grief, what might that?
I've used your illustration all over the world. I give you credit most of the time. But,
you don't have to.
But the impact is why we're here. And to me, I go, friendships, the relationships. If my eternity is based on a relationship, everything in my life should be based on relationship. And it built into your life, into my life, into Burgess's life. That to me is part of the overall equation of why is God doing this? Here's my bottom line. A finite mind will never be able to understand an infinite God. Because if you understand everything about your God's not big enough.
Say that again.
I said, if you can understand everything about your God, everything about him, your God's not big enough.
Right.
Because his ways are not my ways. That's what Scripture says. His thoughts are not my thoughts. He's working in ways I'll never be able to put together because he's God. And so when you don't understand, that's the reason I think in the New Testament, there's a great phrase that's so often misquoted, but Paul says he gives you the peace that passes understanding. That means when you get to the point where you just don't understand, he gives you the peace to walk through it. And that's the reason you can have a book called Bronner. That's the reason you can see someone who's lost a political race and goes the next day, all right, let's get up, let's move on. Now, Did it stink? Yeah, it stunk. Did I want to win? I wanted to win. But I have to understand there's something more important than that. It's the whole word about impact.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, I actually, I thought right up until the end, I thought you had a great chance of winning. Now, I noticed different things. I never took a poll, but I noticed different little ways of, figuring. And, we live in Alabama. And so, there's Scott Dawson signs all up and down the interstate.
Still.
And up until the election, none of them were filled with bullet holes. So I thought you had a chance. I really did. This is Alabama, man. Almost every sign has bullet holes in it. Hey, listen, have you seen the series? It's a new series. And I wish I could tell you even where you can get it. I think Apple TV, but you can Google it and find it. But have you seen The Chosen?
Oh, yes.
You have?
Oh, incredible. Incredible series.
Wow. I talked to Jerry Jenkins this morning, who is Dallas Jenkins' father. Mm-hmm. Dallas is the creator of that and the writer and the director.
Amazing.
I just thought I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was just blown away.
Yeah. During this pandemic, right when we're talking through all this, if you're not watching The Chosen, you've wasted your time.
Man, that's just, the only thing I didn't like about it is I was unaware that there were 8 episodes to the season. And the only thing I didn't like about it is that when that 8th show went off, Polly said, well, that's it. And I was like, what? What? Now, they're actually, as I said, I talked to Jerry today, and they're actually working on the 2nd season now. Dallas
Quickly.
Is. Yeah. Yeah, because right now, 30 million people have seen it. And I'm just telling you, usually I don't like to read a book that has a movie attached to it already. Okay, it's because to me it limits my imagination. I remember reading that book, The Green Mile. Well, I read The Green Mile after it had already been made into a movie, and so the book I had Tom Hanks on the cover. Well, the whole time I'm reading the book, all I can think of is Tom Hanks. I'm not thinking of that prison guard. I'm thinking of Tom Hanks, and that's the guy in Splash with the mermaid, and and so I was a little bit amazed that after I watched this series, it really has enhanced my, I guess, enjoyment of reading the Bible. It's just, I don't know. I guess I always had vague thoughts of what they looked like, but now they seem, all the disciples seem very human to me.
Well, and I think it's a pursuit of excellence behind the camera.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's so well done. It's unbelievable.
So that helps because, in this society, what I do when I'm in front of people and I'm sharing the gospel, I tell everyone, I don't have to earn the right to speak. I mean, we live in a free country where right now I can go out and
so far.
Yeah. But in this society, I have to earn the right to be heard. And that's when you pursue excellence.
You go.
That's when you build the platform.
I don't have to earn the right to speak, but I do have to earn the right to be heard.
That is very different. And that's the reason I think a lot of people in ministry, we've got to learn that. I mean, they try to go on their entitlement of being able to speak. But there's a platform when you're heard. And so the series goes by that equation, and I think that's the reason there's been success. Because think about it. The message of the Bible is exciting. Just try it out. We're the ones that make it so stinking boring that no one wants to check it out.
Right.
So I think those guys have done an incredible job with setting the platform for people to dig in and find out for themselves.
And I am definitely gonna take that line too. And you know,
I have used so many of yours.
well,
It would be a privilege.
I'll do it the right way, because the first time I say it, I'll say, you know, it's like Scott Dawson always says, I don't have to earn the right to speak, but I do have to earn the right to be heard. And then the next time I use it, I'll say, you know, it's like a friend of mine always says, I don't have to earn the right to speak, but I do have to earn the right to be heard. And then the third time I'll say, it, you know, it's like I always say.
Well, I could pull out $50 right now with that I could use an illustration that I've used all over our state that you gave me.
I think that's brilliant. What we're talking about is when Scott decided to run for governor, I had, many of you know, I have a special affinity for George Washington Carver. Yep. He's one of my greatest life heroes. And another man who has become a hero of mine is Booker T. Washington. And these men were both very influential during a time in our country when they were at Tuskegee. Mm-hmm. And many people do not know, because, you know, you hear the narrative is, yeah, you know, America hated these people and they've always hated them. And it's just not true, right? And so most people do not even know that in 1951, 52, 53, and 54, there was a $50 that has George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington on the coin. You know, it's like there's a Kennedy $50. There was a Washington and Carver $50. And so, you know, knowing that Scott was running for governor and was going to be governor for everybody, I wanted him to have that.
Absolutely.
Hey, I really appreciate you being here. I do have one more just little story I want you to get into.
Okay.
And we'll have you back. There's way too much to talk about. But you recently had a very unusual situation, all right? Because, you know, I know that when you're putting on youth things, you're trying to put on something to attract people to come in so that have a great weekend, but so that you can give them the Word of God, that you can bring them to a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so, you know, I have been booked at things like that. I've you know, gone to churches for those events. Well, you had somebody call you and just volunteer to come for free.
Well,
right? I mean, how did this happen?
It's close. You know, there's a lot of stories out there, but here's what happened for us. We had probably the best lineup, the most effective lineup, because we try to be creative every year. We did this back in, let's say, the conference is in January. By March, the previous March, we had the lineup already in place. So we were rolling along, expecting a sellout at about 10,000, and we were like, "This is going to be a great year." November 6th, I had just told somebody things are going so well.
That's a kiss of death.
Yes, I mean, if I could bring those words back, I said things are going so well. I'm always the guy that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. No worries anymore. I was so bold and arrogant, I felt like, at that time. Well,
yeah, and you probably were arrogant after all. You just lost the governorship. Go ahead.
But
why wouldn't you be arrogant?
3 hours later, I get a phone call. Our headliner was we were going to have to remove him and cancel that person because of a immoral situation. Yeah. So we went from having the most effective lineup. We had no one. And this is now 2 months before we're going to have 10,000 students, we thought, but they were still registering and everything just stopped on a dime. And so I tried to find anyone. Try to find a headliner 2 months out.
Right.
you just can't do it. I mean,
Billy
everyone.
Graham's dead.
Well,
It's like, yeah, he went and died on you.
I told somebody I felt
You wouldn't
like
have brought him to a youth conference anyway. But
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
would have loved to. I would have loved to because I saw him. He had one time I saw Dr. Graham. He had 70,000 in an arena of just going nuts with DC talk, and he gets up and in literally less than 30 seconds, he had it where you could hear a dime fall on the ground.
Wow.
You can't create that. You have to.
Yeah,
that comes from
that's
within.
one of those things that I'm telling you. You know, in America, you can have the right to speak, but you have to earn the right to be heard. You can quote,
That's
you
brilliant.
can quote me on. Thank you.
I will use that.
Thank you.
That's tweetable.
Thank you. Go ahead with your story.
Anyway, so we went from having everyone knowing. I was turned down so many times. My phrase was, I felt like a ninth grader trying to get a date to the senior prom. I mean, I was turned down by everyone. And finally, I had a friend of mine who said, I was trying to get with Tim Tebow. But ironically, Tim was getting married that weekend. I didn't know that at the time, but found
After
out.
all you've done for him, I can't
couldn't
believe
I
it.
couldn't believe it. He said he'd come at another time. Anyway, so I'm just at my end, and the guy said, "Well, who is it? If you could get anyone that you wanted, who would you?" And at that moment, I said, I'd love to have Kanye West. I just like to have Kanye West.
Yeah, I bet you would.
Yeah, because I mean, I'd heard about his transformation, if you
Sure.
will, his encounter with Christ, and so he said, "I got a crazy idea." So he called the pastor that was instrumental in Kanye's growth spiritually, and so he sends him an email. The pastor an email. My friend did. And so he copied me on it. Well, immediately, Andy, I'm on there typing my story to him. And so eventually the pastor calls me, and this is on a Thursday night. And he says, "Now look, KW is interested. I'm going to fly up. I'm going to talk to him about it, but I'm not going to fly up till Tuesday. So I'll probably tell you next Wednesday. If you don't hear from me, don't worry about it. I don't know anything." That's on Thursday night. Friday afternoon, I'm sitting at my house, and my cell phone starts to buzz. And it's a number, it's one of those unknown numbers, random numbers.
You
and I'm like,
almost didn't answer.
no, but I thought it was a telemarketer.
Sure.
I mean, I don't need more insurance. The IRS is not coming after me. There's no sense to answer.
Not
this
interested in a survey.
So I just pick up the phone and real terse, I went, "This is Scott." And the voice on the other end of the line said, "Hey, Scott," really chipper. "Hey, Scott, this is Kanye West." And at that moment, I knew it wasn't a joke. But what do you say? But Annie, based on the run for governor, you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be,
Yeah.
So I'm trained. He asks, he says, "Hey, Scott, it's Kanye West." And I go, "What's up, Kanye?" I mean, that's our conversation. "What's up?" And so he's telling me he was involved in some things and ministry-wise. And we start talking, have a conversation, and I knew when he told me, this is in that, I won't say anything confidential, but when he said, "What the Lord's convicted me of right now," this is after he told me his testimony. He said, "Right now, God's convicted me of how arrogant I am." And he said, "I'm asking him to crucify that in me every day." And I thought to myself at that moment, I said, if more spiritual leaders like myself, if we were that gut honest about our struggles, man, maybe we would be experiencing what we're all praying for, and that's revival in our country.
Right.
And so I told him our situation. I said, "Look, man, I'm down to I'm not trying to come after you to exploit you. I'm just telling you I had this all lined up. Now I don't have anyone, and I'm calling anyone and everyone. I just appreciate you considering coming." And that's when he said it. He said, "Well, I'm calling you to tell you I'm not considering it. We're coming." And at that point, I wanted to scream like a little girl. I went, "Yeah!" But I was like, wow, that is really incredible.
You were very cool.
Yes. And so we started talking logistics. It's not, we didn't ask him to come for free, but I went to the very max of what we could do for him. And he was like, "You know what? Let's just make this happen. You're in a tough bind." And my daughter, she has one of the greatest statements about what happened. She said, "Dad, you replaced the one person that most of us thought would never fall with the one person that most people thought could never be redeemed."
Wow.
That's the gospel story. God always looks beyond the one that's expected and gets the one that's willing to receive. I mean, that's the gospel story. And so we went berserk with registrations. We normally, 8 to 10,000. We had 18,122, and that was literally the most we could ever get into that room, and it went flawlessly. Now, I will say he's an artist. I mean, people want to know the behind the scenes stuff. We realized the week before, one person described it to us after they had Kanye. They said the first 40 days, you won't hear from him. But in the last week, you'll never sleep. And that's about how it was, because when it started happening showtime,
Right.
They ordered 38.
Yeah, you had to buy a florist, right?
Yeah, 38,000 flowers were ordered and delivered to the LeConte Center. 38,000 flowers. I've been doing...
But they did not dump that on you, right?
No, they took care.
They took care of
and
it.
we're not talking about carnations. We're
Right.
talking about exotic flowers that came in because they needed the show to be just right. But here's an interesting thing, and I pray that he would never be offended if I told this, because I think it revealed his heart.
Nobody's listening to this.
No,
Go
only
ahead.
30,000. We brought him in. We were going to ask him to pray with the youth pastors. Could we pray for you in front of the youth pastors? He said, he was willing to do that. But when we walked him behind the curtain so you could see the stage, where I was going to bring him up and give him some accolades and just thank him for coming, because we were very appreciative. When he saw the hundreds, literally over 400 youth pastors in the room, he looked at me and he said, "No, I'm not going up on that stage." He said, "I'm not worthy to be on that stage. I'll pray right here." And he just started having some tears in his eyes. And at that moment, I went, wow, this is Kanye West. And anyone that knows his past knows it's all about Kanye. Now he's saying he's not going to get up on stage in front of a bunch of youth pastors just to have them pray for him because he didn't feel worthy. When they went into that service, it was the most... After 30 plus years of youth ministry now and doing conferences, it was it had celebration, it had worship, it had the gospel, it had a message that was phenomenal. And I think everyone walked out of there going, it's no longer about Kanye. It's something bigger than Kanye. And I think...
And Kanye knows it.
And Kanye understands that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to him in 6 months. I don't know what's going to happen to you or me. So everybody says, well, aren't you afraid of what's going to happen in his life? I go, for that moment, he gave testimony to Christ. And all I can do is write. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But I know at this moment, I'm giving testimony to Christ. You're giving testimony to Christ. And Kanye West gave testimony to Christ. Right. So let's pray for him.
Pray for Kanye. Yeah.
And here's what I notice about Jesus. If we're going to be more like Jesus, we better realize he never once threw a rock. And how many times when something comes up, we're so quick to pick up rocks in church life. Jesus never threw rocks. He only threw ropes. And it's time for us to look at society and go, it's time to throw a rope of salvation, a rope of hope to this lost and searching generation. And so with Kanye, let's just keep throwing ropes.
Man, thank you, Scott. Thank you for being here.
Oh,
and we will do this again, but I really appreciate your time. I know you were down here in Orange Beach and here with your family, and even the successful politician part of your family is here. And so, but I appreciate it, man. And I know everybody does. Well, what an interesting life you are leading, and we'll continue to pray for you. But thank you. Thank you for being here.
Before I go, I just want to say, because I don't think you're aware of how many people you've impacted. Friends of ours, mutual friends who are pastors, we could go on naming them. But even during this pandemic, what I wanted to walk through, I told myself, I don't want to walk out of here the same way I got into it.
Sure.
And your book, The Little Things, has been the one that I've gone back to because during this, I mean, a lot of us are just excited when we're not just staying in our pajamas,
Right.
But you're the one that's taught me something can be true, but it's not the truth.
Right.
Get down, if I could use another book, to the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
And so for your life and how you've impacted not only me, but millions of others, allow me just to have the privilege to say thank you, Andy
You're very
Andrews.
kind. Hey, how do we reach you? How do we follow you? How do we find your podcast? How do we find your websites? Just give us an overview here.
Absolutely. Dawson Now is our podcast. It's everywhere where great podcasts are hosted. So iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you want to be there. I have the privilege of leading a ministry. You can get to me by Scott at scottdawson.org. And you can go to our website, strengthtostand.com for student conferences, or scottdawson.org for all the other stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for being here.
thank you.
I am the professional noticer. And what a show. What an awesome conversation today. We appreciate Scott being here. And in the show notes, all Scott's information will be there. And we encourage you to make that contact and make Scott and just following Scott and helping in whatever way you see fit to be a part of your life ongoing. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Hey, here's a thought. Where do you seek wisdom? It's important, Allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, H-A-R-B-O-U-R, harbor with an O-U-R. There's a 30-day free trial membership. You're going to have a blast. I mean, the full membership is only $17 a month, so I think you're going to really, really like this. But a lot of things to do there. Wisdomharbor.com. That's H-A-R-B-O-U-R for your family, for your business, and your schools. Okay. I'm the professional noticer, and I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Don't breathe anybody else's air yet, but make sure you have a positive answer to the question, how's it going? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Sacked lunches provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by touristattire.com. At touristattire.com, we're committed to providing the things you really need to look like the tourist you will be when you arrive at your resort destination. Headed to the beach? Allow us to suggest a pair of sleek and edgy sunglasses to go with that tiny Speedo swimsuit you've already packed. Not really your style? How about a pair of sunglasses so large you look like you're flying a jet? No one will see your eyes, but the 3-inch mirrored lens will reflect the look of amazement from everyone glancing your way. After selecting your perfect spectacles, match them with a goofy pair of pink and blue plaid shorts that hang just below the knee. Need extra pockets? Try our baggy khaki cargo shorts with pockets for everything. You can fit sunglasses, sunblock, hotel keycards, fruit taken from the buffet, handheld gaming systems, a lighter that looks like a shark, and so much more. Order now and receive a pair of black socks to wear with your sandals. That's touristattire.com. Visit our website before your next vacation.